Hello everyone and welcome to a different kind of episode in ARK. So today's objective is I'm going to be adding in some like electronic stuff in here, getting some electrical power things scattered about, and also trying to get some lamps in here. That being said, that being the plan, I think this lamppost ought to do the trick. We're going to need a lot of electronics. Electronics of course need pearls and metal, which we have a fair number of, so I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be alright. But regardless, let me tell you guys what else is going on today. I want to tell you a story. I just couldn't. Normally I stream at about 7 p.m. Eastern on a weekday, and then on weekends I go for like a 4 p.m. because everyone's generally able to get there. But I had to talk about what happened today. Alright? So, well, I'm going to go get some food. We're going to get some fresh meat because we actually do need some fresh meat in order to get all of our dinosaurs fed and stuff because I haven't signed onto the server for a while. But today, I went to go get a haircut. Now, this goes out to all my bros out there, or maybe girls who are, like, sporting some shorter hair. I'm imagining it's different if you have longer hair, so if you're one of those, like, yeah, what up, dude, like, surfer guys who have longer hair, then obviously not. Well, maybe it still applies. I don't really know. I don't really know if this can happen with long hair, because I've never had it. But if you have, like, you know, like, the stereotypical dude haircut, or, like, anything along those lines, I am saying this story as a cautionary tale to you because I messed up today. I made a horrible mistake. So, first part of the error. Today, I woke up, I was kind of like, yeah, you know, and I've had like a haircut on my mind because honestly my hair has kind of gotten out of control and it looks more like my hair is trying to stage rebellion against the rest of my body. And so I thought to myself, okay, you know what, it's about time, I'm about due for a haircut. Let's go in. And now there are about 3 people that I know for a fact will give me a relatively good haircut. There's the one that I have on my vlog channel, which I will be posting on that probably whenever, like, after, like, mid-summer, after summer, somewhere around there. The guy I got from there, the haircut I got from there, another guy who's an Asian dude who lives actually pretty close to where I am, and who I should have gone to, alright? So that was the first mistake. I knew the correct person to go to for this haircut, but I didn't. And then another person that's out in Monroeville, an Asian lady. But I had 3 choices. 3 candidates, one far away, one medium length away, and one really, like, relatively close by. And I knew for a fact that they would have given me a haircut I would have been completely okay with. And they know I'm fashion dumb and just completely unaware about how hair works or any of that stuff. So they literally dumb it down for me. They're like, more cut? Yes. Good? Okay. Like, they talk to me like I'm a caveman because I basically am when it comes to hair and fashion. So I go into this day thinking to myself, you know what though? I remember back in the day I went to Supercuts. And it's always kind of a gamble when you go to Supercuts. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit of a gamble each time you go there. You never really know what you're going to get. And I go into this place, and I called ahead, and I made my reservation. And I'm there. I'm actually a little bit late, but that's okay, because, you know, haircut places tend to be all over the place, and today was no exception. They were late for my thing, which is fine. I don't really mind that. I kind of expect it, honestly. So that isn't the problem. But then I start looking around, and I notice that the majority of the clientele that was there that day were people without too much in the hair department going on. Now, I didn't think much of it right then and there. I didn't think really very much of it. But then, later on, I'll explain to you another thought that goes through my head. But remember that fact. Remember that the majority of the clientele has not very much of the hair, okay? They're not rocking out, you know, like, mad dreads. They don't have mullets. They don't, like, these people look like they, you know, they have some hair going on, but not too much hair. You know, they're not, I'm not saying like they're completely bald or anything, but they definitely have a receding hairline or more. So, as kind of an FYI. So, this situation goes from being like a neutral situation to a very sketchy situation very quickly, because right off the bat, I get sat down, and I notice on my little reservation card thing where they take down your name and stuff, this lady has written my name down completely incorrectly. And I'm like, okay, I spelt it out for you, but fair is fair. Fair is fair. I don't mind. I don't really mind. It's whatever. My name can get misspelled. That's not a big issue. I expect that to happen more times than not. So fair. Fair is fair. And then I sit down in this chair, and this particular hairdresser, this particular stylist, and I'm not trying to bash on stylists, okay? I'm not saying that all Supercuts people are like this, nor am I saying that she was particularly bad even, because I'm sure she does fine normally. I have actually been told that my hair is a little bit odd because apparently Asian hair is very different from, you know, regular fair hair, which I don't particularly understand how that works, but it's apparently like finer or like wiry or something. I don't remember. Someone tried to explain to me once and I don't understand it, but regardless, I sit down and this person, this lovely individual, and they all have like sporting like, you know, crazy hairstyles, kind of like, I feel like they do that to show off the fact that like, yo, look what I can do with hair. But she has a relatively tame haircut. And so I'm sitting here like, okay, whatever, it's kind of whatever. You're not really fitting the rest of them. Like one of them has like dreads, like a white girl with like tats all over her, and she has like these really crazy long dreads, and I mean like really, really long dreads. And then there's another one who has kind of like a bunch of different colorful things going on in her hair. And then my person is more laid back, right? And so she's like, and she's completely fine. I don't mean she looks sketchy or anything, but she's a little bit more tame, and I'm like, that's great, you know, that's fine. I don't really mind. I don't particularly think it matters or it dictates anything. And perhaps I should have thought that. Perhaps I should have. I'm not entirely sure. But anyways, I'm sitting in this chair, looked at this card, and I'm like, okay, the name is wrong. Whatever, who cares? It's a name. I'm not going here to find the best person to introduce myself to. I'm here to get a haircut. And so I'm like, okay, alright, fair enough, fair is fair. Sit down. And then I did this, and this was probably the biggest mistake I made of the day. As I'm talking to her, you know, they sit you down, they're like, okay, well, what kind of haircut do you want? And my hair has gotten kind of, like, long and all over the place. It kind of looks like I just took, like, the end of a really dirty mop and put it on my head, and, like, I have sideburns are going on, and if you saw me on the street, you'd be like, Asian Elvis? But, like, I'm just walking on down the street, and I go in here, and I look like a hot mess. I know I look like a hot mess. I look terrible. But I go up, I say to her, and I talk to her as if it's someone that I've done haircuts with in the past, which is also not a very smart decision. And so as I'm talking to her, she's like, okay, what do you want? I go to the Supercuts website, and they added a little thing there a while ago, where I guess they like show you examples of haircuts, and they're like, this is a clipper cut, this is like the long wavy cut, this is the ridiculous haircut. Like, they have a whole bunch of different haircuts, and they have pictures of it. They show you the front and the back. Now I'm sitting here in this chair, and I just whip out my smartphone. I'm like, doop, doop, doop. Okay, here it is. This is what I want it to kind of look like. I understand, obviously, I'm not like this model of a man, and I don't have that kind of hair, but if you can kind of like emulate a little bit, if you can get like a little bit of that going, and the sideburns I want it about the right length, and I want it to just be a general short professional business cut. That's what I want. I just want a short professional business cut, not like super short, not like I'm being shipped off to the military kind of cut. I don't want a buzz cut. I don't want to look like a friggin' Buddhist monk. I just want a freaking regular old, just short, clean, professional cut. That's all I want. And I think the official one that I ended up looking up at the Supercuts website was like the clipper cut or something. It was like the short one. And it has like a little bit of a raised front, but I honestly don't care about that part. So I go there and I sit down like, okay, I want the clipper cut. And so I show her the picture. And again, this is a Supercut store. It's not like I'm going to incompatible stores or something. But they literally have a little booklet thing, a little like thing that they flip through the pages of on like a little ring binder kind of thing. And they're like, okay. And then they match up the picture to what that says, and it even has instructions for them, like use this kind of clippers, use blah blah blah. And then she looks at me and goes, "Well, what kind of clippers, or like what kind of style do you want?" I'm like, "This kind." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And then she flips over to a picture of a completely different person, and these are the same pictures, mind you. So I'm like, I don't think that's the right one." And she looks at me and she's like, "Are you sure? I mean, it looks right." I'm like, "Yeah, this guy's wearing like a blue shirt." And she's like, "Oh, it might be different." I'm like, could you just flip, just for the sake of humor me, just flip through the pages a little bit." And so she flips through another page, and she lands on another one, again, a different person, and like lingers there for a moment and looks at me. I'm like, shaking my head. I'm like, no, you're looking at the wrong picture. And she's just like, okay, whatever. And she's like, kind of like, she kind of like let out the little scoff kind of thing. I was like, we're never gonna find this picture. And I'm like, I believe in my heart of hearts that they would not be so unkind that corporate has sent you a completely different booklet with different pictures than what they put on their website. And then sure enough, she flips like a couple more pages and voila, there it is. There it is, the picture of the cut that I want. And she looks at it, she's like, oh, there it is. And I'm just like, I'm a little bit concerned at this point, right? I'm just like, okay, well maybe she's like someone new here or something, and like it's very unusual to receive a request for that, because I can understand that, right? Like most people, when you go to get a haircut, you're like, yo, I want this done the same way it was done the other 50,000 times, because that's what I'm used to and that's good. Or like they want like something crazy or like whatever. And I don't associate Supercuts with like a super dope salon. Thank you, by the way, D Nicky, for the subscripciones. But I'm going to keep on going with my story because I'm very self-absorbed. But anyways, she's going through this booklet, and I'm like, okay, whatever, it's fine. You don't necessarily have to be familiar with your booklet of the styles that is promoted and advertised on your website as being what you guys know. But that's fine. That's whatever. It's a really minor thing. I don't think I particularly care. And then she looks at it and she starts reading the directions. I'm like, okay. So she's reading it through it, and she's looking through, and she's kind of like flipping through it a couple of times, being like, "Is this the right one?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the right one." And then she looks at it, she looks at me, she looks at it back, and she's like, and she reads the instructions to me, and then it's like she's trying to get like confirmation. And again, I am fashion dumb. I am the most senseless person when it comes to this kind of stuff on a day-to-day basis. I guess if I like really like wanted to be thoughtful about it, I can be maybe, but by and far I generally don't particularly care about these kinds of haircuts. There are some ones I do. This was not one of them. I just literally wanted to get shorter. I just wanted a nice clean cut. That's it. It's pretty, as far as I'm concerned, it's usually pretty easy. 90% of the hairdressers I find, barbers, hairdressers, salon people, whatever, they can get a good clean cut each time. So I'm like, okay, just go for it. Yeah, that sounds fine. I don't know what Clipper 3 is, but sure, Clipper 3, get the whole gang over, get like 1, 5, even 19, I don't know, invite them all over. Let's have a party. And then she's like, okay, we'll go with Clipper 3. She turns her razor thing on. She turns her like little buzz cutter thing, the one that like shakes violently and like is like electronical and magical and stuff. It turns on, and while it's on, she puts on the actual like the head of the razor, which I'm used to it being the other way around, where you don't put the sharp metal thing on until it's, like you put it on after it's switched to the off position. I just feel like that's perhaps a smart way of going through life, but no, she just YOLOs it. I'm like, just like that did Morphodon. I'm like, whatever, man. I just deal. I just learn to deal. Okay, whatever. Then she just kind of goes through a ritual, she cleans off the stuff, she sprays on, like, the whatever, like, Hericide or whatever it's called, like, whatever the thing is that, it's germicide or whatever it is, the thing that kills off all the bacteria and junk on the blade, but she pulls this thing really close to my head, and I'm like, that's fine, whatever, it's a haircut, and I'm not panicking or anything, and then, excuse me, she looks at me, and she goes, you know what, I think your hair is too, like, do you want to see skin? And I'm looking at her, and, like, my eyes, I think, got wider than the, like, moon. And I'm looking at her, I'm just like, what do you mean? Like, I don't want you to pull out my skin. Like, that sounds terrible. Why would I ever want that? And then it occurs to me after the fact, like, oh, she meant, like, do you want it to be, like, you want your hair real thick? And then, so you can see the skin. And I was like, okay, that makes way more sense. And so I'm like, like, I just want it to be, I want it to be darker, right? I want it so the hair is mostly there, so it's not like really like bits and pieces. She's like, yeah, okay, because your hair's like, your hair is actually really fine, and so it's like, I just have to be a little careful. So we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna take out little bits. I'm like, great, awesome. You caught me on a mistake. Well played. Well done. We've averted a disaster thanks to your keen attention to my inability to do these things. Awesome. Well played. And so she puts the clippers, or whatever they're called, back towards my head. And then she pulls it back again and goes, you know what? I'm going to switch this to number 4 because I think it's going to help with that whole thing that we just talked about. I'm like, okay, good, great, awesome. Whatever. You do your thing. You're the professional. I believe in you. I trust you at this moment. And she just kind of like, okay, whatever. And then she just goes about her business. And then she attaches another head, which she did it the same way again. And I'm getting really nervous for her. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm sure she's a professional. She's safe. She's fine. We start going through. And I start noticing that she isn't just like cutting my hair. I recognize the style and the format of the hair cutting, which was very much not hair cutting. Because like whenever I get a haircut, usually it's like a little bit like it's basically just kind of shave off like a little bit by bit, not like super intensely, but it's like kind of like you're shaving down wood, you're sanding down wood kind of. You know, you go from the rough patches and they get finer and finer and finer. And she just was not in that mode. She went full-blown lawnmower. And before anyone panics, like, oh, you went bald, didn't you? No, this is not a bald story. This is just a questionable experience story. So I'm sitting here, mildly concerned, because she's like, I'm just seeing like these giant hunks of hair falling down. And the first thought that goes through my head is, man, I haven't cut my hair in a really long time. And I sit down thinking for a little bit longer. I'm like, I mean, it's been a while, but that's a lot of hair. I don't know if I've ever seen it go far that much hair fall off and go onto the floor ever. Like, I've just never seen that much go down the first try. So I'm like, okay, whatever, a little bit concerning, but I'm sure it's fine. And then, you know, it starts going over, and at this point, I look like I have a bowl cut, right? It looks like I have a bowl on my head of hair. And I'm just like, okay, I'm sure this is like an in-between point. This is one of those things where it's like, in order to get from point A to point B, you got to be able to, like, you have to go through different phases. This is just her way of getting to point B, right? We're taking a little detour through, like, point alpha, delta, Q, and I'm like, okay, got it, I'm good, and I'm just, whatever, I'm not too stressed. And then I say, hey, you know what, like, can I also get the sideburns cut? Because she starts putting the clippers really close to the sideburns. I'm like, they're really long, I want them hacked off at a much higher point. And she looks at me, and she's like, okay. And then she's like, right about there. I'm like, a little bit higher. And then we negotiate together what the right distance is. And I'm like, great. That's awesome. Good. Like, that's the perfect height. Then she goes to the other side. And this is when I should have known something was wrong. She cuts it, and they're completely different length. Like, they're not even close to one another. We're talking, like, a football field versus, like, a little sandbox. Like, we're not talking similar types of things here. We're talking like pretty far off the mark. And I'm starting to have like a little bit of a panic moment where I'm starting to sit there thinking to myself like, this might be the end of me. I may not make it out of this chair alive. I may actually look horrific. And I'm sitting there like, I don't think I really care if it's a really bad haircut, to be honest, because I'm sitting here thinking to myself like, if it's a bad haircut, whatever, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's just going to be like, I'm going to have to grow it back out, whatever. So I'm not too worried about it. And this is what makes it concerning to me, is that I am not one to really be like, oh, my hair looks awful. I can't go on the hot dates. I can't go out to the discotheque. I can't even go to the roller skating. Like, I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people that's just like, bro, I don't really mind. You can, whatever. You want me to look like Krillin from DBZ? You know, fine. Just make sure that it can grow back, and as long as it's something that's like reversible at some point, go for it. I don't want this to be something that's like awful, awful, awful. Like, it's, ugh, but whatever. So, just going through this, I'm like, just whatever. Well, maybe she's going to come back and fix it at some point. I'm going to see if she notices. She never comes back, and she never notices. I'm like, okay, whatever. She's going through, she's cutting the hair, and then she whips out these scissors. And I'm like, okay, scissors, legit. Like, she's going to get some, like, layers going on and whatever fancy terminology there is. There's going to be, like, wreaths or I don't even know. Fancy, insert fancy hair terminology here. But, like, I sit down and I'm just, like, getting this cut. And then she has been dead quiet this entire time. Like, think, like, spooky quiet. Not just, like, quiet as in, like, whatever. She is very, very quiet. Like, she could be a ninja. She could be an assassin. And I'm sitting here going like, okay, she's really quiet. And then all of a sudden, like in the middle of cutting, she stops. Like dead stop, doesn't have a change of expression or anything, looks down at her hands where the scissors are, and I'm like, uh-oh, did she like cut off too much? And then she walks away. And I'm just like, okay. And like the phone wasn't ringing. I'm a little bit confused and concerned again. I'm just like, she just walked off. Like, where did you go? Like, where'd you come from? Where'd you go? And she just leaves. And then I notice that she goes back towards where the restrooms are and towards where, like, the sinks and stuff are. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I notice that it looks, and again, it looks like she is actually trying to, like, wash off something. And I go, oh, no. I think she cut herself. And so I'm sitting in this chair with, like, what looks like just I came out of a tsunami and just I basically am not, I'm not presentable. There is no version of me that looks presentable at this point. I look very, very concerning. If I walked into a store, you would think I've emerged from the most, like, horrific swamp story and I walked into the place. Like, I would be concerned. If I were a store clerk, I would be like, go ahead, take whatever you want. You look really, really just, like, not in the right place in the world. And I wouldn't be able to fault them. I just wouldn't be able to fault them for that because they would be absolutely correct. I looked like a disheveled mess. The absolute worst. And so I'm sitting here, I don't even have the engrams to do this, cry every time. And I'm not even close to a level cry every time again. But I am now at this point sitting there waiting for her to come back, and minutes go by, and I'm literally counting in my head after a certain point, and I reached 343. 343. That was the total count in my head, and that was after a while had passed. So I had been sitting there for my estimate, because I count a little bit fast, probably about 5 minutes. I'm assuming like 5 minutes ish, right? We're not like doing like exact science here. I'm figuring it's about somewhere in there. Now, I'm sitting here waiting, and then I see her poke her head out. I'm like, okay, great, she's coming back. And then she has nothing. She has no Band-Aid on, anything. She goes into the bathroom, and then she just disappears again. And I'm sitting here like, oh my god, is she about to die or something? Should I be concerned? Should I be like, should I start like kicking out my, like, should I get out of this chair and start like looking for help? Like, should I call 911? And she's just not re-emerging, and then she pops back out, and finally she comes out, and she's just kind of hanging out, you know, whatever, and then she whips out like this little, it's like a little sleeve, right? It's like a little sleeve that you get for for like little wounds and stuff. It's like a Band-Aid, except it's more of a sleeve than a Band-Aid. So I'm just sitting there like, okay, fair is fair. I don't mind that at all. And then we are going, and these lamps are looking weird. That's okay though. So I'm just sitting there like, okay, she got a sleeve on, okay, and then she starts walking back to me. Then she stops, turns around, walks back to the bathroom, and there's a sleeve on at this point, right? She's at this point in the story. I would be very, very confounded and confused if she actually honestly needed a reason to go back, because I'm just sitting there like, you're done. Like, what, you have a sleeve on there. Like, it's not gonna do anything else. And she takes the time to like Lysol the door. So I'm just sitting there like, and like not the door knob, mind you, like not where she touched, which could be a thing where it's like, okay, you know, you bled and you don't want like blood to be on the door knob. You don't want other people touching that. She opened the door of the knob, but she somehow, for some reason, decided to Lysol like around where the locking mechanism is. And now I'm honestly more curious about that than I am anything else. I am baffled by her sudden desire to just Lysol the door, and I'm like, is it Febreze? Like, did she fart in there? Like, what happened? I'm a little bit concerned. And finally, she like wipes it down with a paper towel. She disappears in the restroom, and she comes back out, and then she looks at me, and then she just kind of goes back to cutting my hair. Like, not a word, not a skip beat. And I'm just looking at her like, hi, how are you? Should I be concerned at this particular moment? And then I'm like, you okay? I asked her if she's okay, and she looked at me like, of course, I'm fine. This happens all the time. And then alarms start blaring in my head. At this point, I am just like, oh my gosh, this person must be like a new person, like she must be new to the whole thing or whatever. And it's really concerning that she said this happens all the time. And I'm just like, oh no. this is gonna end tragically. Like, this is gonna end with, like, her fingers are gonna adorn my hair, and people are gonna think I'm a psychopathic murderer, and I'm just like the finger chopper. Like, I'm scared. I am at this point getting very concerned, because I think there's blood in my hair, which there probably was. And it was at this point I also regretted saying, I only want a haircut. I was like, I probably should have gotten the shampoo. But honestly, if it was from you, it probably wouldn't be a good thing. And again, I don't mean to be mean to this person, right? This was, I'm hoping this was just an off day for her, but I'm having a little bit of fun at her expense. But she, oh, God bless her. She's so not caring of the fact that she just cut herself while cutting my hair. And that she's not like, there's no apology or anything. She's just very okay with the whole situation. And I'm like, you can be cool with it, just whatever. And she's like, I'm fine, this happens all the time. And then, just randomly out of nowhere, she stops and she's like, if I had a nickel for every time I did this to myself, I'd be very rich. And now every alarm in my head's like, get the heck out of this chair. You run for that door. You don't look back. No one will follow you. No one could possibly be mad. Hushy, thank you for the 11th month resubberino. But I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you'd be rich if you were paid in nickels? Like, you'd be rich? Or like, is this a matter? Like, I'm like doing the math here. I'm crunching. I'm like, okay, if she cuts her finger like 100 times, we're talking 500 cents. So $5. She wouldn't be rich. She has to have cut her hands like a bajillion times. And I'm internally panicking. On the outside, I probably looked like I was about to drool on myself, just like brain was shut off. But I'm in my like happy place at this point. I'm just like, I'm making an escape route in my head. I'm just like, all right, from here to the door, I could probably take on the really skinny girl over there who's hairdressing, but I can get out of here. I can do this. And I'm starting to like become very like deathbed religious. I'm just like, dear Lord, I've made mistakes in my life, this being one of them. I apologize. I will never come to this hairdresser ever again if you let me go out that door. And I am very, very scared and just very like unhappy with how this is going. And then like she just keeps on talking about how she's totally fine, and she's like it happens all the time. It happens to the best of us. And she's like, do you know, I've been doing this for 16 years. And I am just like, I'm done. At this point, I'm really like, all right, listen here. If you're secretly like on a mission to kill me, and you just wanted to make it look like an accident in a haircut place, fine, whatever, go for it. That's okay. But just get it over with quickly. Give me a painless death. Don't make me suffer. 16 years, 5 cents every single time she cut herself, and she would be rich. I'm dead. I'm like at this point. Come on, guys. There's no hope here. There's just different levels of losing. And so I'm sitting there getting my hair cut by a barber. Well, not a barber, but by a hairstylist who's been working in her position for 16 years. Would have been rich for the number of times she cut herself, and she keeps going. And I'm at this, and then I finally give up. I'm just like, okay, whatever. It's the damage more or less is done, and I can't imagine this going very much worse. So whatever, I'd leave it alone. She then proceeds to cut the rest of my hair, and then I'm just like, I'm kind of frenzied. I'm eager to get out, right? Like, you know, if you guys know what I'm talking about, like, I'm sitting down in the chair, but I'm just like, I cannot wait to leave this place. Like, this place is unholy. It's just, I need to go like spill salt on the ground so we can like purify the earth. I don't want to be there anymore. But I'm starting to look at myself. I'm like, you know, this is workable. This is okay. At least the haircut is not coming out the absolute worst, which, spoiler alert, it was not great. But I'm just like, whatever. I'm just so eager to get out. I'm like, yeah, that's hair was cut. That's what I came in here for, right? I'm just so done. And then she's going along, and then I start noticing that she's using her scissors in like a really kind of odd way. Like, she's almost like spacing them out. And now for some people, for had it been anyone else, basically, had it just been someone I had never met that was just a hairstylist, I would have been like, oh, okay, you're doing something fashionable, trendy. I get a little bit concerned, and I think she saw like a little bit of question, like if you could have guessed what my face was, I was missing number from like Pokemon Red back in the day. I am just a big question. I have no idea what's happening. And so she looks at me, she's like, I'm just layering it. I'm just giving it some texture. I'm like, texture? Okay, texture's great. I love texture. Texture sounds awesome. And I'm just blank, just very, very concerned. Cuts. And I'm starting to notice that they're starting to seem really random. Like, they don't seem to have any rhyme or reason. And usually when this happens, it happens almost exclusively on the top of the head, not on the back. But no. She wasn't going to let anything get in her way. She cut the entirety of my head in this fashion. Where it was just like, she would just go like snip, 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 snip. And it would just be in the most random spot. She's like, oh, I'm just adding texture. And then she asked me the question, do you use any product in your hair to kind of keep it the way it is? Which I'm like, no, not really. I'm like, that's a good question. That's a fair question, I think. So, I'm sitting there just kind of wrapping up what I'm assuming was wrapping up the haircut. And she's just like, yeah, okay, so you don't use that much product. So, I am going to texture this so that you don't have to use as much product. So it'll kind of hold its own. And I'm sitting here doing the math. I'm like, wait. She's doing my hair and cutting it to texture it and somehow making it so it just stands on its own. And I'm starting to notice like there's like stray hairs randomly, and I'm just like, okay. And then it occurs to me, she, in her head, I can almost see the image in her head. She's thinking teepee, right? She's thinking like lean-tos. She's thinking like, you know, I'm going to make it so the shorter things of hair are going to hold up the longer pieces of hair. And my brain's like, wait, that's not going to work. Hair is not like lumber. It's like, you cannot just do that. But it's too late. It's far too late. It's at this point, the damage has been done. I'm like internally crying, not because I'm scared of how I look, but I'm just hoping that she doesn't like lop off her hand somehow during this whole procedure and is like, it's fine. It happens all the time. I was barely like, she's gonna tell me she's like Terminator, and she's gonna like hack off like her entire body. I don't like this. I want to go home, mommy. And I'm scared. I am actually quite scared at this point. But it's just like, okay, you know what? We're just gonna roll with it, right? We're just gonna roll with it, and I go. I think to myself, all right, well, I'm definitely not getting shampoo. At this point, the shampoo is off the table. I was like, no way, Jose, are you going to convince me to get a shampoo from you? There's just no way. But, and then I made a very interesting judgment choice, which was, I decided to remind her, / alert her, that my sideburns currently were worse than the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and they were just completely lopsided. She looks at me, and I look at her. She looks at me again. She goes, really? I'm like, yeah, it looks like the right side's a wee bit longer than the left. And she's like, okay. She looks at me, looks in the mirror, looks at me. I'm like, you realize that looking at me isn't gonna really help your situation. Walks in front of me, looks at me, looks in the mirror, looks at me. I'm like, okay, you are being the most thorough person to make sure I am not lying to you for some reason about my hair being uneven. And then she's like, okay. And then she doesn't look at where she's kind of like, usually you kind of like cut a little bit, look, cut a little bit, look, or you just look the entire time you cut just to make sure that you have it lined up, right? She is just going off blind faith. She just goes, just gone. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I noticed that, like, there's like certain kind of hairstylists in my experience generally tend to go like upward. Like if you're facing forward, either the part that is towards the front of your face is lifting up, or it's going a little bit down. Usually there's like a little bit of a slant action. Mine are going in opposite ways and are still not equal length. So I'm like, I think a little bit more over here. And she's like, okay, cuts it again. And she cuts it down, and now they're about even, but they're still like they're slanted in different ways. Like I look like someone had a very weird fight with division symbols, and they just started like they just threw them all over the place. My hair is kind of looking really funky, and I look sort of like a rhino because she literally TP'd the front of my hair, and it's just like it's a pointy little horn, and the rest of my hair is like it looks like I just went through an oil spill, and it looks really slick, like looks oily beyond all word, and it's just like this one little like poking out point, and I have these weird sideburns. Whatever. I just let it be. I'm like, okay, you know what? That's great. I go over and I get ready to pay her. I'm thankful. And she's like, is there anything else I can do for me? No, that's great. That's wonderful. In my head, I'm like, please, you've done enough. You've done more than enough. I've learned my lesson. I'll never do this mistake again. Go up to the counter and get ready to pay. She offers me like, you know, the little like stampy cards where you put them down, and they can like, if you get so many haircuts, you get the next one free. I'm like, you can't. Sure, I'll take one, but I'm not gonna, like, let's be honest, this is not gonna happen again. Because Supercuts isn't cheap anymore. It used to be cheap, but it's not really that cheap anymore. I think if you like want a buzz cut or something, it's actually like they have a special price for that. But beyond buzz cuts and like really really short haircuts, it's not really a thing. So, I get ready to pay, and then it comes to the moment, and this is the end. Like we're approaching the end of the story here, and I'm like, you know what? Honestly speaking, this is probably the longest thing of hair she's had to deal with today. Because remember, most of the clients there didn't have a whole lot of hair, and I'm starting to understand why. And I'm just like, you know, she's probably like, she didn't mean ill, right? Like I can tell she wasn't just being like negligent or just really dumb or whatever. It might have been an off day for her, whatever the case may be. But for me, I'm sitting there thinking about what I'm going to do for the tip, and I'm like, you know, and I gave her a pretty nice tip, I think. Especially considering what she did, but like I gave her a nice tip, and I kind of just took it as like I'm also tipping her for having taught me the life lesson of not to ever do this again. And so there you go, haircut's done. I'll walk out, and then something I'm walking back home, and you know, like there's storefronts and there's like windows to the storefronts and such, obviously. And then as I'm walking through, I look into the reflection. I check my hair out because it kind of occurs to me I didn't really check my hair out at all. And then it dawns on me. Nowhere during this entire haircut did she ever, from my memory, really take clippers to it to, like, you know, clean it up. Because normally for guy haircuts, we get like taper, I think it's called, whenever you have like your hair just kind of like it's longer towards the top but shorter towards the bottom, that kind of action. I don't think she ever did that. So I'm looking at my hair and I'm looking at the back, and it looks like part of a rug was put on the back of my head. And then I remembered she took scissors to it. She didn't use clippers. So I'm like, oh gosh darn it. And then it's all like, it's dawning on me. I'm like, in my haste to get out, and I think in her haste to be done, neither of us remembered to do the back properly. So my back, I think, is like unfinished. I don't think it's actually done. Even right now, I don't think it's done. And I'm just face palming into oblivion. And then I'm just like, this to me was about like the low point. I'm thinking to myself, it can't, like, whatever. It happens. A bad haircut. It happens to the best of us. You know, it's an unfortunate thing, but life will go on. Like, maybe it's not as bad as I think. You know, maybe it's just like a little like, oh, hoo hoo hee hee ha ha. It's kind of silly, but not that bad. That's the kind of attitude I'm taking with this whole thing. And then I walk by a couple of college students, both dudes. And then as I walk by, one of them starts to giggle a little bit. And I still have the rhino hair, I still have uneven sideburns, and I have basically like half a mullet going on the back. I'm just like, okay, you know what? He could have been giggling about anything. Maybe he has earbuds on. Maybe he's listening to like hilarious comedian. Whatever. I'm not gonna really stress about it. I'm not gonna worry about it. Proceed on, and then the nail in the coffin happens. The coup de grace, the final finishing blow to make it so there was no doubt that I got wrecked. A little girl. And like, I mean, like, you know, like a fairly little girl. She's not like friggin' like what I consider, I describe as puntable. I don't punt babies, but you know, it's just kind of, that's how I describe their size. She's puntable size, right? She's not like, or she's not puntable size. She's over puntable size. She's a little bit bigger than that, but she is a small kid, and then she starts to point, and then she laughs. And at this point, there is no question. There is no hope that this was like a, maybe she's pointing at the spooky ghost that's haunting me, or like that kind of situation. It's over, right? The jig is up. I have lost, and the hairdresser has won, presuming she is my sworn enemy. And I'm just defeated. I kind of slink back home. I start getting really like paranoid about who's looking at me. I'm like looking over my shoulder. I'm like, yeah, I know you're staring at me, bro. I know you're thinking my hair is looking ridiculous. And it's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, it's kind of not, it's not muggy. It's just like damp. It's damp. It's like a cool damp outside. It's like misty. Not Misty from Pokemon, but like, you know, misty as in like, it's just kind of cool. It's sort of that misty, like, oh, it's kind of cool, and there's kind of water. There's moisture in the air. And so I'm just kind of walking through, and I'm like, okay, whatever. This happens. It's not uncommon for this kind of thing to happen. Whatever. And then something beautiful happens. Oh, does something beautiful happen? Hello? Oh, there we go. I walk up to my place, and I get ready to unlock the door. And then I look into the mirror, and I notice, for the very first time, that my hair, because it was moist out, also has started to do its own kind of, like, it started getting flatter than normal. And so I have, like, it looks like a leaf was placed, like a wet leaf was placed on top of my head, except for my hair. And it's just like, it comes down to a point, and it's perfectly located above my nose. I have one of the most bizarre looking things of hair I have ever seen. And I'm starting to think to myself, like, oh, this is the exact reason why I look oh, that makes so much more sense. At this point, guys, I've come to accept it. And in all honesty, I don't particularly mind all that much, although I probably should. And it's just kind of like okay, whatever. It happens. And I'm just kind of dealing with it. And I go home, and I wash my hair. And this is the kind of thing that kind of pulls the story together for me. I go home, I wash my hair, and then right before I started streaming, I took another shower. I actually showered before I went to the hairdresser because I thought it'd be rude for me not to wash my hair, because that would be gross to touch a dirty person's hair, because my hair was definitely not clean. So I had washed it before I had gone, and I washed it again, and then I raised it up. And now, I don't know if this was by design, or if it was like some miracle, but I dried my hair off, and my hair doesn't look the worst, surprisingly. It actually doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look great, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like gonna be like, hey, you want a hair model? I have the most fantastic head of hair you've ever seen. I'm not talking that, right? But I don't have the worst hair. I certainly don't have the worst kind of hair. It's pretty decent whenever I just kind of do it my own way. So it ended up working out fine. But even so, and the main thing that I wanted to stress through the story was, for those of you who go get haircuts, I'm not trying to say don't go to Supercuts, right? I'm not trying to start some like anti-Supercuts campaign. All I'm saying is you might want to learn a little bit about haircuts. Don't go through life not understanding haircuts. Take some time, learn some of the language, figure out what exactly it is that you want for your hair, because there is no one to blame. Like, I honestly have no one to blame but myself for not having known the things that they were doing. Like, I should have known what to ask for. And a lot of my friends know how to do that. I just don't know. I've never been one to particularly care about that kind of stuff. But very, very clearly should have known. So, regardless, that's the end of that story. It ended up being okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. I'm not gonna lie and say I think I look like a freaking rock star or anything. But it was okay. It ended up being an okay time. Got a haircut, got it all sorted out. It wasn't the greatest, it wasn't the worst. It was just a very like, it's a haircut. So it didn't end up being the worst thing. So I would say it wasn't too bad. I still have like a really weird back of the head. Like the back of my head still looks like I kind of got a roadkill stuck to the back of my head. But you know, minus that minor detail, minus that little inconvenience. More or less what I would have expected to have had. So all in all, okay. All in all, things were resolved in a fashion that I can be okay with. So, either way, that is the end of the little story time. We're going to continue doing this whole electrical thing. I'm wondering if that's trying to snap onto the right point. I think it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. So we do have... Right. I want you to connect. Can I connect you there? Hold on. Okay, let's see if we can connect this to the very, very back there. If I can, I would love to do that. Yeah, okay, we can. So let's feed this up. Alright, cool. And then let's go on. Yeah, that was a long story. I'm so sorry that the story was that long, guys, but it's just I really thought that I should tell you guys this story because for me, I'm not someone who cares about haircuts and stuff like that. But I've never had someone cut themselves on my hair before and then proceeded to tell me that they do it all the time. Like, it was just bizarre. Like, it was just legitimately one of the most bizarre moments of my entire life. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was just like astounded by just how like bizarre the situation was. And maybe I'm just being overly dramatic. Perhaps that's the thing. Maybe this is all unwarranted and I'm just being unfair. I have no idea. But to me it seemed kind of odd, to put it very lightly. It seemed kind of strange that she went about this the way she did. But who knows? Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe I'm not being genuine about the whole thing. But we do have light in here, thankfully. It's not quite nighttime, although this doesn't look that bright, which is kind of a bummer. Walcarno still sitting behind the wall, very nice. Well, how am I going to do this? Alright, so I guess we're just going to lead this wiring all the way up to the top here. And then we'll just have another like wire network up here. So we'll worry about that particular thing in a moment. Let me go ahead and yeah, let's actually extend this all the way to the back wall. Let's extend this to the back here. Alright, that looks pretty good. Extend this up. And that should be poking up right there. Beautiful. And then just like that. Okay, now this one is sort of funky. I don't like where that's landing. Let me... okay. So that's not gonna work. I guess we'll just put the outlets down here. So this is gonna turn into a pretty big power network kind of thing. Alright, so let's connect this over here. And we're gonna need some electrical outlets. We're gonna have to get some silica pearls and then we're gonna be on our way. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that little... And by little, I mean ridiculously long story time with Choco. I just was flabbergasted by like just how preposterous the whole situation seemed. So, I don't know. For me, it was a very odd thing. I thought it was an interesting experience. Perhaps it was not, but I hopefully you guys did enjoy that. I'm gonna go get some silica pearls, but I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna call it there for the YouTube episode. I'm gonna continue working and plotting all around, getting more electrical stuff set up. And we're going to set up lamps everywhere. It's going to be a lot of back and forth, collecting pearls, collecting crystal, collecting metal and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead, call it there for the YouTube episode, continue working, hang out on stream for a bit, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. and hopefully we're going to have some adventuring going on for the next episode. So we'll see how it goes, but perhaps it might turn into more base building. I'm not entirely sure. It depends on what happens by the end of this and how I'm feeling. So anyways, if you guys enjoyed, please consider leaving a like. 1 like equals 1 less bad haircut in the world. And then 1 subscription, of course, just makes me happier, and it just grows the Quay Army's numbers into a much larger force than before. But if you guys want to, feel free to also subscribe and all that stuff. So anyways, take care everyone, and ciao for now.